Mitchell Reiss, what do you think of the current state of play with the P5+1, the Iran deal?
Well, we now have seen the results for the past year, and the agreement has held in part, but it's disappointing. It's disappointing because there's evidence, very recent evidence of Iranian cheating on the core items of the Iran deal, but also the broader disappointment that Iranian misbehavior across the region has not been moderated or cut back in any way. In fact, it appears to have accelerated.
Would you like to see sanctions reintroduced?
I think that certainly should be on the table, but it's not so easy to reintroduce sanctions. Snapback sanctions were always more of a phrase than a policy. Those sanctions took years to get in place, to win the support of many foreign governments. It's going to be very difficult to actually get them reimposed.
Today we're talking about solution for the Middle East in general. Should the US take a tougher stance with Saudi Arabia?
In what sense? On what issue?
Saudi Arabia, some of the human rights violations that have been described under the current Iranian regime are also true of the Saudi Arabian regime. And should the US take a more nuanced response to its support for Saudi Arabia, an important ally, no doubt?
I think the United States has been very clear to Riyadh about its concerns over human rights, not just recently, but for many years. And with friends and allies, often that type of discussion is best in private, although we do publish a human rights report every year. I think where we've been lacking is actually calling out the Iranians for their systemic and massive human rights violations, which by some public accounts have actually increased in the past year. So if we're going to be nuanced about it, I think that we need to be able to be much more forthright and have the same standards for all the countries in the region.
Do you think that Iran is developing a nuclear capability?
I don't think there's any question about it. I think that they've invested massively in terms of human capital and in infrastructure for many, many years. One reason, one factoid, is their development of an intercontinental ballistic missile. There's actually no reason for them to have that unless you're going to marry it with a nuclear warhead on top.